The Florida Gators spring game is here, and they made a ridiculous decision that I absolutely hate about it.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free for every single podcast and on YouTube. Happy Friday, as always. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. And the Florida Gators play their spring game tomorrow. And this game was announced months ago, right? So for months, everybody knew that, hey, Florida spring game, April 12th, 1 p.m., great. Many schools have been canceling their spring game. And this was the thing that I think people didn't necessarily float as a suggestion, but did ask of, hey, does that mean that Florida will cancel their spring game? And Billy Napier came out and he said, no, we're not going to cancel our spring game. We're still going to go out there, which for those of you who don't know, the reason that so many schools have been canceling their spring games, we know that we've heard, I forgot which school it was. Maybe it might have been Oklahoma, where they're going with like a combine style, but with little skills challenge, like making it like a fun weekend type thing. And the combine style makes a lot of sense when you consider that Oklahoma just hired Jim Nagy as their general manager. Jim Nagy, former NFL scout, former executive director of the Senior Bowl. Now he's Oklahoma's GM. He spoke with Billy Napier about the Florida job for a bit. And after that, it was like, hey, we're going to do the combine. Some schools, again, are doing a maybe closed spring game, no public attendance and nothing. Some schools are doing nothing. And Deion Sanders and Fran Brown, so Deion Sanders from Colorado, of course, and Fran Brown from Syracuse, they tried to petition for a Colorado versus Syracuse spring game, like a spring scrimmage NFL style, where they go, hey, we're going to practice together, for 3 or 4 days. And then we'll play a game, a scrimmage, and then we'll call it a day. And so I think the plan for that would have been try to home it. Like, hey, this year we're going to go 4 days to Colorado and then go. Next year you come 4 days to Syracuse and then we'll go, whatever it may be. Florida, Billy Napier said, nope, we're not doing any of that. We are doing our normal spring game routine. We are going to have our practices that we are allowed to have. We are going to have a couple of scrimmages, and then we are going to have the spring game. And that's fine. The reason that teams are canceling all these and making all these adjustments is the transfer portal, because the spring portal opens in a few days. And what happens is you see guys that are playing in the spring game, like, let's say, I don't know. I don't want to use a specific name because I don't want to speak it into existence. Let's say that there's a third stringer somewhere, right? And he's playing the spring game, looks decent for a third stringer, nothing amazing. And a low-level Power 4 school or a high-level G5 school could see him in the spring game, reach out and say, hey, why don't you come and get actual playing time here? And you could be a star on our team. And that's one of the things. Other smaller schools are saying, hey, we don't want a great athlete to be put on film and then have Texas come in and swoop them up. Or any other program. Like even starter caliber players are, I guess, up for grabs. We'll say with how the spring portal has worked after spring games and players entering the portal. So that's not surprising at all. But tampering is the main reason that all these spring game changes have happened, right? Yesterday afternoonish, Florida announced that, or Zach Goodall specifically, announced that the spring game would not be aired anywhere. And that's a huge difference for Florida, because while Florida basically went, yeah, we're going to have our spring game, we're going to showcase our talent. They then kind of walked it back to, we're going to showcase our talent if you're there, which is annoying. Which I will say, my personal gripe with it is not that you're doing this. I have no problem with saying, hey, we're going to have our spring game, but it's not going to be aired. Right? We're not going to air it. We're going to make this a real, because it's still open to the public, by the way. And before you can, if you can go to the spring game, go to the spring game. Okay. Attendance is free. If you're a Florida Victorious member, which if you're not, join, use promo code LOCKED and get 20% off your first month. But you can join if you're already a Florida Victorious member, you can go, and after the game, there's a meet and greet with all the players. You go, bring stuff, go to the table, get things signed, whatever it may be. There's going to be tailgating beforehand. I know that the Murky Waters group is going to be around. I know that High Top is going to be around. So there's going to be tailgating everywhere. There's going to be people having fun, celebrating at halftime. It's going to be celebrating the basketball national championship. So if you can go. And also, I will say this. I think that now that it's not televised, it's going to feel like a more intimate event, right? It's going to feel like, hey, like if you're here, it's because you love the Florida Gators, right? And I think that's huge for the success of the event, right? I have no issues with that. Again, my issue is not saying, hey, we're not going to air this. We're going to do it privately. Or not even privately. It's open to the public. It's free to attend. It's just, you just got to go there. So I'm fine with that. The thing that I have an issue with is less than 48 hours before the spring game, making that announcement is just incredibly annoying, because I know that myself and many other Florida Gators fans, had we known prior to, probably would have planned to take a trip to Gainesville and go see the spring game, because, we miss Florida football. It's been a few months. It's been almost 5 months, right? So it's been a while. So it would be awesome to see. But 48 hours in advance is not enough time for many people, myself included, to set up this trip. And also, full disclosure, I was looking at flights and I saw the cheapest flight that would get me there on time was like $1,600. So it was crazy. And I'm not spending that for a spring game like that, especially when the reason I would have to spend that much is because they waited until there were, 2 days, less than 2 days there. So that's annoying. We are going to look at these rosters for the spring game in just a second. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now at turbotax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free for listening to the podcast and on YouTube. And last night at about 8-ish, the Florida Gators released their roster for the spring game. This was something that I thought was going to happen Wednesday night, happened Thursday night. Before we can talk about the roster, which we're going to start with the orange team, strictly because when they tweeted the roster, it was orange was the first picture and blue was the second, and of course orange blue game. So yeah, we're going to go with orange first. But we may get clips from this. Someone may record the whole dang thing for all we know. Who knows? Regardless of whether or not there's any way for us to watch this game in any fashion, in any extent, there's still value in the spring game. Maybe not so much for us because, we'll get reports and opinions. We'll get all this stuff, but we just won't get the actual experience of watching it. So there's that, but it's not a thing that, now because we can't watch it, there's no value. There's still a lot of value in this, right? Looking at the Orange team, and while I'm talking about this is my first time reading this roster, right? This is my first time reading this roster. I was not, looking for everything. I just clicked it and said, we'll roll with it and see. Looking at it, it's clear that the Orange team is second team offense, first team defense, which I will say, don't get too hung up on things like that because there's going to be players that play on both teams, and there's going to be heavy rotations in the spring game like there usually is, so that you can actually, see guys play. It looks like this players on both teams are Devin Manuel at offensive tackle, Taylor Spirito at wide receiver, Lane Swafford at the edge, Jeremiah McLeod on the defensive line, who he's someone that I'm very much looking forward to, like his high school film a lot. And that's it. There's 4 guys this year that are playing both sides, which is fun. Also, there are injured players on these rosters that they get given teams anyway. They get to talk trash at the teams. The staff is broken up. The head coach on the offensive side of the Orange team is Jabbar Jalouk, who is the running backs coach. He's also got Rob Sale, Billy Gonzalez, quarterback coach Ryan O'Hara, Steve Spurrier Jr. is on that team as well. Defensive head coach, or the associate head coach of the team, that's the defensive name listed there, is Mike Peterson. Ron Roberts is there, although I suspect he won't be doing too much. Ron Roberts, Darren Wilson, Justin Posthumus on the defensive side. That's interesting. He used to be with tight ends and then receivers. He's moved around this coaching staff a lot. And so there's that, at least on the Gatorade side of the Orange team staff is Savannah Bailey and Brandon Spikes. So he's in that one as well. I mean, like, if you can, I suggest just looking through this list. It's fun to see people that pop up and see all these names of like the army that we talk about that we never really see. It's a nameless, faceless army for a lot of times. But here you get all the names. They're all in there. And there's a lot of people to genuinely just study afterward. But for the Orange team, I mean, defensive line, and again, like I said, like this is the starters, but things are going to get mixed up. Defensive line is Caleb Banks, who I suspect won't do much, if anything. Makai Boy Rose in there, Jeremiah McLeod, DeAndre Robinson, Sebastian Scott's in there. On the edge is George Gums, LJ McCray, Tyreek Sapp, Lane Swafford, Jaden Woods, Jaden Woods is a guy that we've heard about consistently. And I suspect that he'll get a lot of playing time in that second half of the spring game, would be my expectation. In the secondary, you got Dijon Johnson, Cormani McLean, Devin Moore, Javian Toombs. And I do feel like, obviously, not everybody's fully healthy, all that, sure. But I do feel like many people look at Dijon Johnson, Cormani McLean, and Devin Moore as kind of the 3 guys that we think of as potential starters on the outside at corner this year. So, like having all of them on the field there. Miles Graham, Pop Howard, Jaden Robinson, all there again. I feel like, those are 3 guys we talk about as they're going to be the starters on the interior. Rocco Underwood is on the Orange team, so they're winning, obviously. The quarterbacks for the Orange team are Harrison Bailey, Tramel Jones, Aaron Williams, and Lawrence Wright the 4th. Running backs is going to be a really fun group there. It'll be Duke Clark, Kanan Daniels, KD Daniels, and Anthony Rubio. Chad Gaster is on that team as well, but he's, of course, out. It's going to be a fun team. The offensive line is, so typically in the spring game anyway, when you look at the offensive line, you talk about it, there is value there to be had. And the value oftentimes comes from just, hey, these guys are going to be playing together as a unit, right? So offensive line is more important for the blue team, which we'll talk about in the next segment, because those are going to be your starters in the offensive line. But also for just the depth and development, this is going to be one of the times where you really get to go play game situations, or it's going to be one of the last times that some of these guys will get to actually play game situations, right? You'll have scrimmage in fall, but once games start getting played, you're not going to see scrimmages really. So you're not going to be getting those true simulated controlled reps that we talk about, which controlled reps, game-like scenario, everything's game-like except quarterback's not getting hit. Things like that. It's less reckless. So looking at the offensive line, I feel like that's going to be really important for some of these guys developmentally because, again, and this is not a Florida specific statement that I'm going to make, but offensive line across the country right now is not being properly developed, right? And I'm not just talking about college. The NFL O-line depth is horrible, right? It's terrible. Offensive line depth. I bet that if you polled all 32 teams, at least 30 of them would say, yeah, O-line depth is bad here. We need to upgrade that. O-line development is just not going well right now. Okay? So O-line development is bad. You need more game reps. You need to continue being put in these game-like situations. So the spring game is huge for that part, especially. College, it's not being developed. Part of it's because of the portal. Guys are constantly leaving, being coached different ways. Part of it is because of guys getting promotions on the coaching staff and moving up and moving out. And then high school, high school coaching, I feel like has taken a step back and has really prioritized the skill positions. And so the offensive line gets less love for that. But looking at this offensive line, the depth chart, it's incredibly young on this Orange team. It's going to be a lot of young guys. I would, just from looking at it, I would guess that we have Devin Manuel and Fletcher Westphal starting at the tackle spots. Guard's going to be interesting. That might be Noel Portenjagen. And I don't know if that would be Marcus Maskell has been playing center. Guard's an interesting one. Enoch Wangoi will probably be a backup tackle because Devin Manuel playing on both sides means he's probably going to play less snaps. That's going to be really interesting. Receiving room, going to be fun, right? Everybody's fun in that receiver room. This is, Speedy and Small, TJ Abrams, Alex Gonzalez, Tank Hawkins, Nashawn Montgomery, David Schmidt, Taylor Spioto, Jackson Wade, Dallas Wilson is the only giant on that receiver room. And then a tight end, Scott Isaacs, Micah Jones, Cam Kosman, Caleb Rillos. Fun duo there, or fun group there. Micah Jones could be fun to watch. But I am curious if this means that we're going to see Jabbar Jalute calling offensive plays and Mike Peterson calling defensive because they're the guys at the top with the bold next to their names. So I'm curious if that means Orange team defense. I mean, defense can be so filthy if they put things together. They're going to be really filthy. We are going to talk about this blue team when we wrap up, which is the starting offense. So we're going to talk about them in just a second with Locked On Gators. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we are talking about this blue team, blue roster. Again, these rosters came out at like 8 Eastern time last night. And again, I will say this. Do not put too much stock in who plays and what lineup and how much they play. Like I said, like this roster, we don't know all the injuries. We don't know everybody that's going to be a full participant, partial participant, and you're not going to get that information at all anyway, so it doesn't matter. But this is an important developmental opportunity for a lot of these guys. And when we look at this team, again, offense starters are the blue team here that we're talking about. And the offensive line, we can assume that it's going to be Austin Barber at left tackle, Najee Harris at left guard. We have Jake Slaughter at center. Rod Kearney probably going to get reps there as well. Right guard, Damian George. You will probably see Rod Kearney rotate into the guard spots as well. And right tackle, you will see either Bryce Lovett, right tackle. You can also see, Caden Jones is on the Orange team, which is interesting. So you will likely see Bryce Lovett get a lot of the reps at right tackle in this one. That's an important one there. Quarterbacks, DJ Lagway, who will see Paul Kessler, Clay Millen, and Aiden Warren. Which, how funny would it be if we spent this whole spring with oh, is DJ Lagway throwing at all? Is DJ Lagway gonna play? What is up with DJ Lagway? And then he just comes out in the spring game and plays it like nothing's wrong. They just play a totally normal spring game, and they just don't acknowledge it. like media's like, hey, what happened? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is par for the course here. Running back room is unsurprisingly Jaden Ball, Jacoby Jackson, Treyon Webb. Kelvin Jimenez is in there as well. Tight end room, Hayden Hansen, Amir Jackson, Tony Livingston. No surprises there. Hayden and Tony are likely going to be the starters, with Amir rotating in as well. Receivers, Vernell Brown, Jaden Edgecombe, DeBron Hampton, Khalil Jackson, Aiden Mizell, Taylor Spirito, who's playing on both sides, J. Michael Sturdivant, and Trey Wilson are going to be in there. There's so much speed in this wide receiver room. We'll talk about this for a second, because I feel like people hate how I talk about the wide receiver room, which I hate that you hate how I talk about the wide receiver room, because nothing that I've ever said has been that this wide receiver room isn't good. It's that we don't really know what they are. There's a bunch of fast players. There's a bunch of very talented players, great athletes, but proven production just isn't there, right? It's not. We haven't seen anybody on this team really be productive outside of J. Michael Sturdivant at different schools and Trey Wilson behind the line of scrimmage. Outside of that, no one's even really played enough to be productive. Khalil Jackson not going to be participating. Fairly certain that he's still dealing with his injury. Tore his ACL last year. Linebackers, inside linebackers, Aaron Childs, Ty Jackson, probably going to get most of the reps there. Jake Seller is in there as well. This offensive staff lists the head coach of the blue team as Gerald Chapman, defensive line coach, Robert Bala, linebacker coach, Vinny Sunseri, David Reese, former Florida Gators there, Daywan Wilkins, who came over recently from Kentucky, is also on that team. On the offensive staff, you've got the AHC. I don't know if they're in this case saying assistant or associate head coach. Not that it necessarily matters too much, but that's Jonathan DeCoster. Russ Callaway, who's the offensive coordinator, is on that staff as well, which not surprising. The offensive coordinator is on the side that has the starting offense. Who would have ever predicted that one? But Russ Callaway is there. Would imagine he's calling plays. David Decker, who is a wide receiver analyst there. You've got Eric Keesaw is also in this. Eric Keesaw used to be the offensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. Chad Lucas is on the orange team. Okay. Eric Keesaw was the offensive coordinator at Auburn under Brian Harsin. You've got William Piegler, former tight ends coach that recently came back to the team. You've got Riley Simons, former Florida Gators offensive lineman, that basically, when Florida had to cut down a scholarship prior to the 2024 season, might have been 2023 at this point, was a while back. But basically, he retired from football to join the coaching staff and stay at Florida. Game Changers is Joe Houston's over there. Katie Turner Decker is with the on-campus recruiting staff. Gatormade is Stephen Alley and Diane Leben. Again, just one of those things where it's just fun to look at. We got the SID on this team as well. So boom. But defensively, the interesting part with this team is going to be looking at all of the depth, because you look at like corner, for example. Corner's a side that or a position that we spoke about last segment. Corner's a side that we spoke about last segment, where it's like, yeah, on that orange team has Dijon Johnson, Devin Moore, and Cormani McLean, who are expected to be the starters. Then you look at the blue team, and it's Michael Caraway Jr., who, interesting to note, or not even interesting to know, but Sharif Denson was on the orange team as a safety, which star usually is listed as a safety here. That's fine. But Mike Caraway Jr. is listed as a corner. And I said when Mike Caraway Jr. came over from Southern Miss, I view him as more of the star position. It's what he played at Southern Miss a lot. Again, he is someone who played significant snaps at outside corner, in the nickel, at both safety spots. Like he's a very well-traveled DB. He can play everywhere. Maybe it doesn't matter where he's listed. But I very much value him more as a nickel than as the outside corner. And maybe it's injuries here, but at corner, you've got Mike Caraway Jr., Teddy Foster, Jameer Grimsley, and Ben Hanks Jr. Teddy Foster, Jameer Grimsley, they were part of the 2024 class. Ben Hanks Jr. is part of the 2025 class. This is an incredibly young cornerback room on this blue team right there. So that's just an interesting note there that yeah, they are so yeah. And of course, the defensive side on the blue team is going to be young because it's all the youth. It's the same thing when we talk about the offensive line on the orange team where it's all the backups. They're the young guys. But offensive line of the blue team is Tavorius Brown, Nick Flynn, Connor Homa, Jamari Lyons, Jeremiah McLeod on both sides, Stephon Shivers, or Shivers, Brian Taylor, Edge, Kofi Asari, Titus Ballard, Charles Emmanuel, Cam James, Lane Swafford, and Jalen Wiggins. I mean, this is like, again, I'm looking through all of this. Wait, Bird Sherrill is on the personnel for the blue team. Jacob LaFrance is the personnel for the orange team. They're going at it here. Orange side's personnel is better. Just saying. Just looking at the list, they're better. Nothing to do with Bird. Has to do with every other name on the orange list. That's cool. But Florida, again, like as we talk about these teams, I cannot express how awesome this roster is. Truly. Like, and again, I've given Billy a ton of crap. I've given this program a ton of crap, and I will continue to do that if until they win games and shut me up, which I think's fair, right? I think that's fair to say. But I mean, this roster is just juiced. It is. It's just an elite roster. And every time I look at it, I think more and more about how this Florida Gators team should be in the college football playoff, or the season's a loss. Same like this roster. I don't care what the schedule is. This roster should be able to get into the college football playoff. That's 9 wins probably. 9 wins gets you in. This roster should get 9 wins against any schedule. It's up to the coaching staff to live up to the talent, and that's it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back next time to talk more Florida Gators. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work on New York Giants on SI. And as always, I will see you all next time.